So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to invite Maureen Kahonge, Senior Manager Business Development at AFRA, to come up and moderate our next session, which is going to be on the topic, how are African airline CEOs approaching structural industry shifts, potential for growth, sustainability implications, and business transformation. That's a mouthful. Ladies and gentlemen, to help us do this, I want to invite Ms. Yvonne Makolo, CEO, RwandAir, and Mr. Allan Kilavuka, Group CEO, Kenya Airways. Shall we welcome them with a round of applause, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The scene has been set. From the executive punchline, where we heard from the industry perspective, Tiaka, AZA, and AUC giving us strong words and calls to action that we need to do as airlines. For this session, I'll be jumping onto the other side of the fence, and we speak to the airlines, and specifically to airline CEOs, to give us the point of view on the specific actions, initiatives that they are doing from the airline side, as well as what we need to do as airlines, and also share some of the ideas on some of the success stories that they have, so that we can have more sustainable airlines in Africa. So for our discussion today, we'll be looking at the first part to debunk what do we do to disrupt the status quo. We'll also be looking at the key important focus area on route development. It's been mentioned, the issue of intra-Africa connectivity is one of the biggest hurdles that we need to circumvent in Africa. We'll also look at environmental sustainability. It's one of the priorities for the industry, but from the airline side, how much of a priority and what are the specifics that airlines need to do? Or what do we need to do as the industry to support the airlines to achieve net zero 2050? We'll also focus on the important component, the customer. The customer is king. What are the initiatives on customer centricity and digitalization that airlines can do, implement to be more profitable? And last and not least, we look at talent and diversity. To help us to discuss this, I will start with a few slides just to set the scene. And for each component of the discussion, we'll be looking at discussing what is on the screen as a guide. I don't know if you can see the text from where you're seated, Allan and Yvonne. It's very small for us. But the text that's on the screen is giving a very good picture of the opportunities, the population of Africa. It's been mentioned, Aaron, I have a huge population, and a big percentage of this population is the youth. This is a gold mine. So what do we do for Africa to tap into this gold mine that we have as a very young and vibrant population? When it comes to air transport, the traffic by African Airlines does not look very good. We are only at 2.1% of traffic. And profitability, 2024, after a long hiatus of making losses, on average, African Airlines made $0.9 per passenger. I wonder what you can buy with 90 cents. How much if you can look at it figuratively, maybe a sandwich. Is it enough? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
So that is what Africa is making in terms of profit. Other regions, for example, the Middle East was $15 per passenger revenue. American Airlines, on average, $13 per passenger. So what can we do in our region to write our own script that, as we've been advised, to have more profitable African airlines? And the first question on how can we disrupt the status quo? We have a good example and a good story, Kenya Airways. I like the image, the project Kifaru. Kifaru is a rhino that you see on the screen. Recent announcement that Kenya Airways, you made a big turnaround. Last year you had the largest improvement, and this year you came out of the red, 125% increase in your profit for the year 2024. So Allan, a round of applause. Allan, what are the ingredients to the success that led to this good outcome? Is it maybe the Kifaru? What is behind the story of the success?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good morning still. Yeah, I was running ahead of myself. Good morning, everybody. So I'll say this. So there are different ingredients to Project Kifaru. But the most important thing is intentionality. So Project Kifaru was conceived in 2021, right after COVID. And the whole point was, how do we, first of all, there were different elements. So first of all, how do we survive? Because COVID had such a devastating effect on the airline and all airlines that we needed to find a way of surviving the storm. So there were specific things that we were doing, including cash conservation, cost reduction, and the like, to survive that period. So after we had survived and we avoided bankruptcy, the next stage was to make sure that we are optimizing the assets, the people, and the resources that we have. So the whole slew of optimization, including the network, the schedule frequencies, people, assets, improving productivity, so a whole shebang of initiatives that are driven towards that. And then the last one for Project Kifaru, what we're calling Project Kifaru 1, was culture transformation. How do we work? What do we need to change in terms of attitude so that we are more productive, we are more focused on customer, we are reducing cost, we have high integrity, we are more accountable in everything that we do. So those specific buckets, like I said, were very intentional, measurable, there were milestones to it, and what we had told the market is that, based on what we had planned, that we believed that we would turn around by 2024, which we did. Now, I have to say that, of course, it needed a lot of support. It needs a lot of support from all the stakeholders. First of all, the customers. Secondly, the government from a financial support, because we also needed to do some financial restructuring as well. And then, last but not least, the suppliers that we have. Now, if you don't have support, aviation, you're all in aviation, you know how complicated it is. If you don't have support from any one of those, then it becomes extremely difficult for you to sustain these good results.
Indeed, a conducive environment. Yes.
One last thing.
Okay.
So this was Project Kifaru 1. Mm-hmm. There is something we're calling Project Kifaru 2.0, which is about sustainability. So good results have been posted, but it has to be sustainable. Because if you're not careful, it can be a one-shot, a one-time wonder. And sustainability has to do with capitalization of the company. The company has to be properly capitalized for growth. A small airline is not a good airline. Okay? The bigger the airline, the better the airline. So 2.0 is about growth, is about excellence, and is about sustainability.
Well said. Very important to have a conducive environment and to be very deliberate on your actions. And you said Kifaru 2.0, so there's another 2.1, and we do hope that we can get to see that sustained excellence, because it's easy to get a good performance, but what do you do to sustain that good performance? Maybe some of the airlines, since we have a good number of CEOs, can get some notes from the Project Kifaru example. And from RwandAir side, we are very fragmented, and that's one of the challenges, because we cannot be profitable if we don't have those economies of scale. Looking at RwandAir and partnerships, in the press conference you mentioned, it's really an important thing. So you have the RwandAir and Qatar partnerships. So how can such kind of partnerships help us rewrite Africa's playbook?
Good morning, and thanks, Maureen. As you mentioned, we are very fragmented, and we also know that doing business, especially aviation business here in the continent, is extremely expensive. Everything is expensive: fuel, taxes, overflight, everything. So scaling up becomes a big challenge. I think what's great about the ongoing partnership with Qatar is it allows us, number one, to reset and to get things right, to make sure we have the right people in the right places, to make sure we have the right fleet, and so that we're able to scale up. And partnering with a more experienced, bigger airline allows us to do that. In addition to that, the construction of the new airport as well gives us an opportunity to really achieve that level of scale. We're a bit limited in the current airport, as wonderful as it is, as people have mentioned, but we can only grow so far within that context. So I think partnerships like this will allow not only RwandAir with Qatar Airways, even amongst African airlines, to achieve growth without basically going broke. It's very difficult to go at it alone. So which is why the collaboration is such a key theme in this year's convention. So it'll be great to see partnerships like this. I know ET is doing a lot of that, and other airlines, in order for us to survive as airlines within the African continent and to grow the pie that is the African market. Collaboration will definitely have to play a big part of that, and we're really proud of the partnership that we're currently building.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And still on partnerships, Allan, we had the Air Afrique concept working well, but for various reasons, it did not eventually survive. Do you see, or do you have positivity for an African bloc?
Yes, I think you are starting the hornet's nest, because this is a very critical topic for African aviation. I think I've said it many times, and I repeat it today, that we will not survive unless we collaborate. Not that we may or may not, we will not survive as African aviation. We will not survive unless we collaborate. Unless we work together, we will not survive. It is extremely critical for sustainability. So the Afrique model was a fantastic model. I think Aaron said that. Fantastic model. We also had the East African Airways, which was also critical and important. But for whatever reason, we were ahead of Europe. We were ahead of Americas in terms of consolidation. Then we have reversed the gear and we have completely fragmented. So it is now critical that we as African carriers work together. But Maureen, I want to say something here. For African carriers, and I want to disagree with Aaron on one thing, it is not, first of all, aviation is about economic development. It's not about the survival of the airline. Aviation is critical for Africa for economic sustainability of these countries. And therefore, the countries in Africa, governments in Africa, have got to decide that aviation is central, it's important. It is going to be a catalytic drive for economic development. So once the governments have decided that, then they will support the industry. Because we as airlines are only one cog of a very big industry, a big ecosystem, including tourism. So governments should take the Rwanda example and make a decision that aviation is critical for economic development. That way, then we focus all the policy support, all the resources support, the other ecosystems around it support, and then it moves forward. And we've seen many examples around the world where countries make that decision, and my favorite example is only Singapore. They've made a decision about aviation, and you can see what it has done to help the countries grow. So I've digressed a little bit, but I thought it was important to mention this.
It was an important digression, and also to disagree a bit with Aaron. And that being said, Allan, if you had one thing that you could change in African aviation for it to be a successful industry, what will that be?
The minds of our politicians. Because there has to be political will. The reason why we keep talking about SATAM every year, we keep talking about Africa Continental Free Trade Year every year, the problem is the political will. That is, let's be honest about it. The problem is that there's no political will to push it forward. There's hesitation for whatever reason. They might be good or bad, but there is a hesitation. So for us to make progress in aviation, there has to be a political decision that economy is important and aviation is central to this. So that's, for me, that is the one thing that I would say, can we tweak this a little bit and have people who have a different kind of thinking that will help to drive economic development through aviation. So that's what I would change. You said one thing.
One thing, yes.
That's
just
the one thing.
Yeah, I know you can have a long wish list, one thing. Mindset of the politicians, and also maybe the mindset of the industry as well. As mentioned earlier this morning, we need to have that innovative mindset to change our own narrative. And Yvonne, one thing that you could change.
It's unfortunate that Allan answered first, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. And I'm not copying out. It's because that then translates to everything else. All the issues that we're currently facing within the continent, whether from a cost perspective, if we're all aligned, not only from the government side, but all the different stakeholders, the regulator, the airports, we're all aligned that aviation is really the driver of the economy, then we'll see lower taxes and less arbitrary taxes that are imposed on a daily basis in different African countries. We'll see much cheaper overflight. Something will be done about the cost of fuel to make it more cost effective for us to operate. The issue of visas will be resolved. Infrastructure, the right infrastructure will be put in place. We know what a challenge it is to fly into some countries because there's under investment in infrastructure. So that one thing will cascade and make really aviation in Africa take off. And that needs to be done. We talk about it a lot, but that needs to be taken seriously and really implemented as soon as possible. I'm proud that Rwanda, as Allan had mentioned, takes that seriously. Aviation is seen as a key pillar for the economy, and Irene articulated very well how that has helped the country grow. I wish that could be translated across the continent and implemented.
And very well said. Also to commend the government of Rwanda, we've had the presence of 3 ministers at the event, and the minister will also be joining us for the Safety Summit to do the opening. So Rwanda is setting a very good example. Our next focus area is on, thank you. Our next focus area is on route development. Intra-Africa connectivity being very low compared to other regions. Rwanda, you have quite an aggressive route expansion strategy. We are seeing quite a number of routes that you're opening. So what is the drive behind the route development, and what are the factors that you're considering in your route development decisions?
Well, as you said, we have been expanding. Unfortunately, we've had to take a pause with the recent development of the DRC airspace being blocked, which is unfortunate that politics comes into aviation. So that led us to suspend some routes temporarily, but that's also an opportunity to sit and reset and look at the viability of those routes again and see the opportunity in opening markets in other areas. But as RwandAir, we're really focused. Our vision is really to connect Rwanda to the rest of Africa and to connect Africa to the rest of the rest of the world. So we're doing that not only with our own metal, as had been mentioned before. We are opening new routes. We're adding additional frequency on existing routes, but we're also doing it through code shares, with our partner Kenya Airways, of course, and other airlines that we also have code share agreements with. For us, it's really critical that Rwanda is well connected. For the economy of the country to grow and for the economies of other African countries to grow, we need to make sure, especially given that Rwanda is a landlocked country, that it's easy to get here so that we can attract investment, we can attract tourists, and we can make it easier to trade with all the regional partners. So I think that's the logic behind us opening, and the big focus is on opening within the African market, and then seeing how we can connect these African countries to Rwanda and to the rest of the world.
Yeah, indeed, that's very important. And looking at what we have on the screen, it's a screenshot from a flight radar that I took a couple of days ago. Looking at the number of flights, Africa map is pretty much very bare, and the other continents, especially Europe and North America, it's quite busy airspace. So we need to do quite a lot to ensure that our African airspace gets to improve in terms of travel. As mentioned earlier by the Secretary General of AFRA, about 10% of Africans are traveling. Now on the chart on the right side shows the number of tickets per year for various sub-regions, various continents. For the African continent, on average, a citizen gets to travel 1.1 times a year. And that citizen, if you look at, for us who are in this room who get to travel more times than once per year, you're the ones who are above that 10% of the Africans who get to travel. Other regions get to travel so many times. So the low travel frequency in Africa from the airline side, Allan, how can airlines stimulate demand of air travel, and also while paying close attention to the component of costs?
Yeah. So, you see, airlines in Africa have really pushed this agenda. First, by starting off with what we are calling low-cost carriers, which in fact in Africa are not quite low-cost because it's a high-cost environment. But, trying to get a model that will help to lower costs and support travel in Africa. So that is the one area. And Kenya Airways, we've started a very successful low-cost carrier called Jambojet, which has dominated the domestic space and now is going into neighboring countries.
And Jambojet is in the room. He's going to present later in the afternoon.
Yes.
The story.
And I'm sure those are Jambojet travelers and so on. Yeah, so this is just one aspect. But I also wanted to say that there are two angles to look at this. I mean, there are many other things that we do to stimulate traffic. Some of the things are completely out of our control. For example, the poor infrastructure in some of our countries. Many of the airlines here who fly to certain countries, which I'm not going to name because it's not important, will tell you that, in fact, some basic infrastructure, like, for example, fire suppression equipment, we have to pay for it ourselves as airlines. This never happens anywhere else in the world. We have a high-cost environment, for example, because countries, and this is to my point earlier, governments have decided governments in Africa have decided that this is an elitist sector, and so they levy more taxes. This is one area to levy more taxes. So of course, when you do that, you increase the cost of travel. I think Aaron, who's now walking away, was saying that we should domesticate travel in various sectors. For example, East African community. You know, there is no reason why, when you're traveling within the East African community, it should not be considered domestic. There is no reason, because we are so aligned on many, many aspects. When I'm traveling to Rwanda, I can travel with my ID, but why do I pay international taxes in terms of air passenger service charge, or the other way around? I'm saying both ways. Or to Uganda, or to Tanzania, and so on and so forth. Why don't we domesticate East Africa and say, when I'm traveling to Rwanda, I pay local taxes for air travel? So you move that from $110 to $6. And then it makes it much cheaper, much easier for us to increase our traffic, both RwandAir and Kenya Airways. We increase the traffic. People coming from Entebbe to Nairobi, we have about 500 people every night who travel from Entebbe, from Kampala to Nairobi by bus. They are not traveling by bus on 8 hours because they love it. They're doing it because it's cheaper. If we move those 500 people to, or maybe half of them, to air, it reduces the amount of time they're spending on the road. They do more trade. They increase the economic development. And so then it stimulates more traffic. So I'm saying that as much as we as airlines are doing our best to improve and to increase traffic, there are impediments, including costs and taxes. And one last thought, based on your very nice picture there of the world. You see, yeah, we don't have a lot of traffic within Africa. We have to make sure it densifies. Now, one of the things I think we are being told, don't copy and paste. One of the things we've copied and pasted is net zero 2050.
And you're coming to that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
Well said. So it all boils down to changing mindsets of our leaders, changing mindset of our politicians, or also changing the mindsets of ourselves as the industry, the operators. And I'll be moving on now to the next point of environment that you touched upon, Alan. We have the net 2050 targets, and you said they have been copy-pasted and imposed on us. We did a survey as AFRA, and among the priorities, environment was not ranked among the top priorities, which could be because we have various pressing matters that airlines need to implement to remain sustainable. But that notwithstanding, Kenya Airways is making a lot of initiatives on environmental sustainability, which we commend you for taking that leadership, Alan. Are there any specific initiatives as RwandAir, as Kenya Airways, that you would want to tell the audience about, and any specific partnerships that you are undertaking, especially on the SAFs?
Yes, we do have some initiatives that we've taken. So let me very briefly talk about the initiatives, then I'll go back to my point. Yes, we are pushing, because as you can see, if we don't do anything about fossil fuels, then you have a problem, you have a 35% problem that you have a 65% problem that you have not dealt with. So which means that we are doing all these other initiatives that will contribute 35% of carbon emission reduction, but we still need to deal with the elephant in the room, which is fossil fuels. So for the other ones, we're doing a lot. I mean, for example, in Kenya, we have a deforestation problem. So when you think about carbon substitution, we are working with the government to play our part in afforestation. So we as Kenya Airways have committed to be planting 2 million trees a year. Starting from now, we have been allocated 200 hectares as a project that we will do next year, and then we'll replicate that for the next several years. to increase the population of trees. And then we have waste management as well. Today we have a plant in our headquarters which is converting all the waste plastic to cleaner diesel. We call it pyro-diesel. So the pyro-diesel is 50% less carbon and 50% less sulfur, and that we use for our ground equipment that is still using diesel. And then we have all these recycling initiatives that we're working on. So all these initiatives that we're taking, including how we fly, fly more efficiently and so on, using better equipment, we are buying electric vehicles and all that. So that all effort, but like I said, most of that is at 35%. So the elephant in the room is 65%, which is, for now, it is a sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. So on this one, we have gone into collaboration with a local organization which is looking to produce SAF. So we've identified about 6,000 acres of land, which was degraded land because of mining of minerals there. So we will plant the feedstock on that particular land. Of course, it's going to be a long-term project before it develops, and then it produces SAF. So we'll be doing that and involved in the value chain of SAF production. But now going back to my original point, which is I am so concerned about the industry meeting the 2050, or even there's this 2030 goal, I think 10%, if I'm not correct, and then 2050. And my main concern is the push or the requirement to continue using SAF. Not that SAF is a bad thing. SAF is a very good thing. But what that will do to the growth of aviation in Africa. That is my main concern. And going back to that, if you could go back to your chart, world chart, and say how are we going to be able to, if you go back one, because how are we able, as Africa, how are we going to look more yellow if we charge more? Because if you go to SAF, then you increase the cost of flying. And as we know, Africa is already a high-cost environment. So that's a conundrum we need to solve. And that's a discussion I think we should be having as AfricanAirlines, and not just copy and paste. We should have that discussion. So how do we reduce this? Are there any subsidies? Are there certain things that we need to do differently so that we do not stifle growth just because of cost of travel? I know I've gone on about it because it's a very interesting subject.
Yeah, it's really important, yes.
I know this is a topic we discuss extensively, whether it's at AFRA or at IATA. I don't think there's any airline that is against SAF, and we all understand in order to meet the net zero target of 2050, the fastest way to get there is through the use of SAF. But as Allan has pointed out, we need to also be realistic about it in the African context. We had mentioned that Africa contributes 2% or 2.2% of global traffic, but now we have this huge push to move towards SAF, which is number one, not available or barely available in the market, and number two, if you can even find the little SAF, it's 3-4 times more expensive than conventional fuel, jet fuel. So we already have our citizens complaining about the cost of air tickets, but now if we onboard SAF, that means the cost will have to be passed on to our citizens again, which means the cost of tickets will go up. So we really need to be realistic about this, and also it seems the onus is on the airlines to find this SAF, whereas it should be the different stakeholders, including the fuel providers, to find solutions for this SAF. Governments to have incentives, subsidies to encourage the production of SAF and to lower the cost of SAF. But now it just seems it's up to you, airlines, it's up to you, KQ, RwandAir, look for SAF at whatever cost. But that's just not realistic. With our low penetration, it's going to be another huge, huge stumbling block.
Yeah, and increasing the cost of travel really is not the way to go. And if you were to ask the passengers, for example, those of us who are in the room, if you were to have an option of buying a ticket at 3 times the price because you're having SAF, who will be interested to pay that? Show of hands. Anyone who will want to pay for SAF and a higher price of a ticket? No one. Yeah.
We did that survey. So we did that survey in Europe, and I saw a few hands go up. But I did it in Africa here. There's not a single. In fact, they went further down. Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to find a way of meeting those targets, but at the same time, how can we make SAF to be more accessible in Africa at a lower cost and without impacting the cost of the airline operations? So moving on to the next focus area is on digital and customer centricity. We start with Kenya Airways. What digital and operational transformation are you putting in place to stay competitive, some of which we've seen that are resulting to your financial performance improvement?
Yeah. So a lot of digital transformation is about the customer. Is how do we make it easier for the customer in his customer journey? First of all, to make a decision. Secondly, to get the best possible and most convenient flight or decision. Thirdly, to navigate his way through his journey. To make payment, of course, that's more important even to us. And then secondly, to track their behavior going forward and anticipate and predict their behavior. So all that is what you're doing to make sure that the customer is in line, or we are in line with the customer thinking and behavior, and also be able to predict what they're doing. So a lot of what we have implemented, so right now we implemented our new website. We are currently working on a brand new mobile app, which is going to support that thinking. Secondly, we also have, when it comes to our contact center, we have digitized it, so you can actually use digital means to make your way around and ask questions. We also have AI tools, which are predictive in nature, so they can predict your thinking and buying behavior, so they can support your buying as well going forward. And then one thing that is probably not obvious here when it comes to digital is cyber security. We've seen a lot of cyber crime and cyber risk in aviation, even for big airlines. I think last year I saw some airlines in Europe, I'm not sure I should name them, but quite a big ones, some in Middle East, which they work with us, including Yvonne. They were also hit. So for us, we have put a very big emphasis on cybersecurity as well, because it is an existential risk for us. So everything that we do is first to ensure and to push for response to our customers, and secondly, to guard our digital assets. And then one thing on the side is we also have a subsidiary called Fahari Aviation. In fact, their theme is the future is now. I saw that's your next topic. You should have probably have invited them. And what they're looking at is what are the new trends in aviation, for example, unmanned aircraft and so on. What are the new digital trends so that they can support the group in thinking ahead of everybody else. So there's a lot of innovative ideas coming out of there. The previous panel which was here said we should not use the word innovation. Actually, in aviation, if you're not innovative, you very quickly die.
You mentioned the component of cybersecurity as a very important point. The more we become digitalized, the more we need to ensure we have a robust system to avoid those threats. We have a panel later in the afternoon after lunch that will be discussing that as one of the items, the CIO's roundtable. And then now for RwandAir, are there any initiatives you have in place for the customer loyalty experience that you are proud of as RwandAir?
Well, we have a few. We have with our partner Qatar Airways as well, based on our extended code share. We have the earn and burn, where our customers can use their miles on Qatar Airways, or the Qatar Airways passengers can use their miles on ours. So we've integrated our loyalty system, which is great, and there's a lot of enhancement that's being worked on that front to automate it even more and make it more seamless for our passengers. We're looking at different products to encourage more uptake of the business class cabin. We've recently introduced a business light, which as an entry point for some of our higher value customers to try out the business class cabin, because they say once you go business, you don't go back. So hopefully that will work. And we are also looking at, we just soft launch and we're going to fully launch. I think Allan has the same thing, the RwandAir holidays as well, just to make it more seamless for our passengers to book their tickets, their hotels, their transport all in one portal. So those are some of the initiatives that we do have currently in place and we are working on.
Yeah, very, very important initiatives there. And for Kenya Airways, I can attest to the fact that you have that app that is working very well. And nowadays, when you travel on KQ, you get a lot of WhatsApp alerts that this is the gate, you're about to board. And then after the travel, you get an email thanking you and asking you to fill a survey. That is really commendable. Our last focus area will be looking at the talent, diversity, and leadership. I like the first, on the left side, the aspect of the diversity, inclusivity, and on the right side is on women in leadership. We have an uneven playing ground. And there are some initiatives in place to ensure that we can have an even playing ground as women, to support women in leadership, to also support women in STEM careers. So as we rise in careers, for the male kind of career journey, the hurdles are not the same as we have for the ladies. And some of us can attest to that. And Yvonne, you're a very good example that is a case study, also quite discussed. But I'll ask this to Allan. For Kenya Airways, what are the specific steps that you are having in place to have that gender balance at leadership? I know you already have a current ladies at top level, but what are the specific initiatives you have in place to ensure that you have that balance at leadership and also at the technical roles at KQ?
Yes. First of all, let me say, this is the one area where Africa is ahead of the world. And we need to be very proud of it. Because you think Uganda Airlines has a woman as a CEO. We have Botswana has a woman as a CEO, and she's here. You have RwandAir, a woman as a CEO, and I might have forgotten one or two. But I can promise you, I crack my head to think of CEOs in Europe and in America who are ladies. They might be there, but they are few and far in between. So we need to be very proud of this, and I think we deserve a clap. I'm not saying those are enough. I'm just saying that we are ahead. In fact, if I look at my numbers, so for example, pilot numbers. Globally, I think it's 5%, if I'm not mistaken, are ladies. 5%. 5, not 50. 5%. KQ, we are approaching 10%, and a jumbo jet is even higher, I think. So we are ahead again. When it comes to our executives, again, we are not there yet, but at least we are 29% of our executives are ladies. We should get to 50% maybe at some point, but again, we are ahead. So I think that's the one area we might be doing well. We need to do more. So the initiatives that we are taking, so we have specific initiatives. We have something called Empower Her, which I think is used also elsewhere, but very specifically to help fast track women, particularly into executive leadership. We have a plan. I know that IATA plan is 25% by 2025 or something like that, but this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know whether we've attained it yet. I don't think so. Some airlines, okay. So I mean, we need to do, for us, it's even more. And when we think about this kind of thing, it's not rhetorical. It's not just a nice to have. It's important because diversity brings more variety to organizations. So we think about gender diversity. We also think about disability. So we have in Kenya Airways, we have a very specific program. This year, we will have 20 people of differently enabled people. So people with visual impairment, people who are albinism, people who have physical handicap, even mental, who have autism and the like. I've just forgotten the name. So all those, we have at least 20, and that sounds like a small number, but I can promise you, if you're doing it properly and you're doing it very intentionally, it's not easy work to make sure you're getting the right people on board. So those kinds of, and we're doing diversity, not because it's a nice to have or we're trying to tick a box, but because it's important for us to be inclusive in society. So we are a reflection of society, not just in Kenya, but around the world.
That's very commendable. And even for the cabin crew, KQ, already you have a cabin crew with albinism, which is setting the pace, and it's an example, a good example for other airlines to follow. And then looking at
just we have one with albinism.
Yeah.
We have one who's training, who is an amputee.
Okay.
Who's going to be a cabin crew shortly.
No, that's very commendable.
Yeah.
Still on talent, one of the areas we can rationalize our cost of operation is on cost of manpower. And what is RwandAir putting in place as measures to ensure that you train local talent, you nurture and you grow local talent, instead of looking out to hire expatriates, which can be very costly for running the airline?
Yeah, definitely. The cost of manpower, especially expatriate manpower, is something that we're looking at very carefully. Just looking at on the side of pilots, on the technical side. A few years ago, I think the local Rwandan local pilots, what we had was about 20, less than 30 local pilots. But over the last few years, working with our sister company, Kenya Aviation, who've been training our local pilots, we've put in place a cadet program training our local pilots. We've graduated about 40 new, we're going to get about 40 new pilots who are in the pipeline right now, including female pilots as well, which is fantastic. And as the Prime Minister said during the opening for this year's cadet program, we received more than 2,000 applicants for the cadet pilot program as well. So the interest is there. So we want to tap into that, and I know we'll still need expatriate staff in different areas, but we really want to make sure that RwandAir is also developing local talent. If you're going to be a regional hub, then we'll need people, local people, to also be in these different positions. In the new airport that is being built, we'll definitely, which is bigger, there's a plan in place to set up the Aviation Center for Excellence, which is going to kick off this year, to train in different areas, not only technical, pilots, engineers, dispatchers, cabin crew, so that we have enough of a local pool to help with the growth of the airline. And now also we have in place an internship program where we bring graduates to get a taste of aviation, and the ones who like it and perform well, we absorb them into the company as well. It's being refined as well to make it more robust, and we hope through that as well we'll have a more robust pipeline to bring local talent into the airline.
Yeah, that's well said. And surprisingly, even for this convention, we had an overwhelmingly subscription from university students based here in Rwanda. That shows really you have a potential to grow local talent. And later tomorrow, we have a session that will be looking at academia and industry collaboration on the aspects of training. So that's a discussion that will be debunking more into how can we develop and train our local talent. To conclude our discussion, I would not want to let you go without asking you a very important question. I'll start with Yvonne this time. What legacy do you want to leave behind for RwandAir?
As Yvonne or as RwandAir?
As Yvonne and also as RwandAir.
Well, as Yvonne, I'd really like to leave behind a strong airline. An airline or RwandAir that people will be talking about that really helped build this country, helped the economy of this country get to where it is. As you know, Rwanda is extremely ambitious, so the airline is trying to keep up with the country. So I'd really like RwandAir to be known as the airline that really opened up Rwanda to investment, to tourism, to trade, and connected Rwanda to the rest of Africa and Rwanda to the world.
And Allan?
I would take a more Pan-African view. I'd like Kenya Airways to play a bigger role in supporting the aviation fraternity within Africa, more to consolidate and come together so that they can be more sustainable. Because I truly believe that the continent needs, particularly for this aspect, needs to work together and needs to consolidate more. And therefore, in the end, it will reap the benefits because we will be more sustainable. We will, every year now, we'll be coming to celebrate. The reason is because I know as African countries, we focus a lot on the here and now because they are bread and butter issues that we're trying to deal with. There's poverty eradication, there is hunger, there is all this trouble that we're trying to deal with. But I promise you that aviation is a solution. And so we need to focus on aviation, and I would like to play my role in passing that message to African people and African governments that it's not an elitist industry. It is part and parcel of helping to alleviate poverty and helping to remove us from our dire states. So I would like to leave that kind of legacy.
Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, a key message: we need to change the mindsets of not only our politicians, our decision makers, but also our own mindsets to ensure that we drive sustainable African airlines. And we also need to really focus on collaboration. We cannot survive if we will not collaborate. That is our take-home message for today. Thank you very much, and a round of applause to our panelists.